Welcome back to the Fox Robbins Business Show. Good to have you back. This show is all about developing your business. And we have a fantastic show tonight with Walter Brooks. We'll talk more about that later, but he's practically an icon here on the Cape and a very interesting person to listen to about developing business. And what we also have is some discussion about his well-known publication, which is Best Read Guides. And I am your host for the Fox Robbins Show, and our co-host is none other than Cliff Robbins.
Mr. Bill, how are you?
Cliff, you look great.
Thank you.
You look great tonight as usual. You look very trim and energetic.
Getting trimmer by the week.
Oh, that's good.
So my wife tells me.
What did you tell me? You got a special diet going? Is that what are you doing, vegetarian or something?
No, I just don't eat as much.
Yeah, right. Good. Well, we have a regular part of this show we're going to get to as Cliff's notes, but before we get there, Cliff, we had an interesting advertisement that's a key to the times today, which is, as I recall, it says, buy a toaster and get a free bank.
That's correct.
You killed me. I mean, I fell off my chair when I saw that.
We share some interesting things through the university interconnection, and this came across my email from Professor, I think it was at Texas A&M, I'm not sure. And I said, well, that's a reversal. Instead of making a deposit in your bank and getting a free appliance, today you buy a toaster and they'll give you a coupon for a free bank.
Yeah, I love it.
Now you know where the value is. It's in toast.
That's cool. I loved it. I just wanted to let you know. I mean, you killed me on that one.
Good.
Anyway, I mean, it's a sign of the times. And but what we're going to do is we're going to turn to a regular feature of this show, an important essential to the show, which is Cliff's Notes, because Cliff is a senior advisor for the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center's network, and he travels widely, meets a lot of people. He just sort of he knows what's going on, and in every Fox Robbins Business Show, he can tell us what the business scene, what's happening in the business scene. And so, Cliff, we're going to turn to Cliff's Notes.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you again. My client service administrator, Tammy Jacobson, who is in the office in Fall River, I asked her, would you total how many people, small business people, I've counseled in the last 7 years? And she actually pulled up a number for me. I've been saying between 1,500 and 2,000. It is pretty much 1,700, so I was right on. So I've seen a few people in the small business community in southeastern Massachusetts, and I just want to say that things are difficult out there for everybody, particularly the small business community. You know, a rising tide floats all boats. When things are going well, fortunately or unfortunately, you can sail a boat and not hit any rocks because the tide is above the rocks. Well, folks, the tide is out. The tide has gone way out, and the rocks are exposed, and the wind is howling, and if you really don't know how to sail a boat, you're going to hit a rock. And that's what's happening in the business world today. Too many people are out there not really knowing what to do, some of them freezing and not doing anything. If you know what to do in today's economy, you actually will position your company to come out of this thing very, very well and be positioned to be very successful when this thing turns around, because this too shall pass. It's going to take a while. I don't figure it's going to turn around after this winter. So in the meantime, you've got to do things to thrive and survive, and there's a lot you can do. I recently did a seminar in Fall River, another one in New Bedford with the regional director, Melinda Ailes, and we had a panel of experts talk to 50 and 60 small business people, and we actually have filmed this, and it will be on our website, and we talk about the different areas, the different functional areas that you can shore your business up, do the right things in your marketing, do the right things with your human resources, do the right things with your financial statements, These are the things you've got to do to run a business at any time, but especially now. You've got to pay attention to the details of running your business because the tide is out, as I said. The rocks are there. You don't want to hit them. So if you'd like, go to www.msbdc.org/SEMass. And that's www.msbdc.org/SEMass. And we are going to stream video that it's about 2 hours long. We break it up into 4 or 5 sections. And so I highly urge you folks to go online, look at that video, look at different sections of it. We've got some really smart business people talking about the things that you can do in your business, in the various functional areas of your business to be successful. And today, you've got to do the right things to come out the other end of this very, very difficult time.
That's fantastic, Cliff, and I think that's very necessary today. It is not to sit around and weep and moan about the economic situation, but ask questions. What can I do?
Absolutely.
And get with it and do the right things with your business so you don't have your sailboat doesn't end up on the rocks.
Yeah.
You know.
And doing nothing is the wrong
Easy
thing.
to say.
Right?
Yeah, doing nothing.
Or doing the things we've done before is the wrong thing. Right.
Well, we have a terrific guest for this segment of the Fox Robbins Business Show that is in keeping with someone who is sailing his boat very well, if to carry the analogy.
Yeah.
We have, you're really going to like this show. We're going to have Walter Brooks, who is practically an icon on the Cape and very much demonstrates the idea that Cliff and I keep talking about, is that you can build successful world-class businesses right here on the Cape. And he is a proof of the pudding. Mm-hmm. And well known as he is the founder, publisher of what is called Best Read Guides. That's known not only in New England but elsewhere in the country. Very successful publication, still going forward. And he is also the publisher. He's now electronic. Walter has gone electronic, and he's the publisher of Cape Cod Today. And he's also started up another website operation called ecape.com, and we can talk more about that later. But Walter is going to be a lot of fun to talk to. And Walter, it's really great to have you here today, and we want to hear about your story.
Walter, good to see you again. How are you?
Cliff? Good to see you again.
How are you feeling?
Pretty good.
Tell the audience a little bit about your journey here over the last many decades to starting a very successful business right here on Cape Cod.
Well, actually, I'm from a newspaper family. My father died in the newsroom of the Waterbury Republican American when I was in college, and I dropped out of college to go in the newspaper business the week after. Yeah. And so I've been a newspaper man longer than I'd like to disclose to anybody in a television audience, but I've always loved papers, and I've loved media, and I love Cape Cod. My parents always visited here, literally going back to their side of their marriage in the 30s and 20s. I've been coming here all my life. Moved here permanently in 1965 with my wife Patricia, and went to work for the Cape Codder weekly newspaper in Orleans when Malcolm Hobbs owned it and ran it. And actually, I've been to Cape Cod even before that. I met my wife in Provincetown when I was a beat poet and a street artist. She purloined my sketch pad one afternoon, and as I was...
Purloin means stole.
Well, she took it without my permission, and when I was off
She
swimming...
must have been impressed by it, Walter.
And I came back and saw this beautiful blonde walking off with my sketch pad, and I accosted her, and she moved into my pup tent in the sand dunes that evening, and we've been together more decades than either one of us also would like to disclose. However,
I love that story.
When I got here to Cape Cod, I just continued a newspaper career that included the Greenwich Time, the Naugatuck Daily News, the New York Post, and other newspapers. And I wanted to raise Pat and our new family here on Cape Cod. I thought I was making a huge financial sacrifice by coming to this backwater, but unfortunately or fortunately, I brought me with me, and of course, didn't realize at the time I was coming just before the start of the digital age as well. So having transported myself from New York City to Cape Cod didn't in no way lessen the potentials for the growth of anything I wanted to do.
Because you said the key is you brought Walter with you.
Well, most people do.
Right. if they'll only realize that.
Yeah. Anyway, after 12 years at the Cape Cod, I went to work for MPG Communications in Plymouth, and they gave me, among my other responsibilities, running something they had called Cape Cod Guide, which had been around at that point for 30 years. And they said it was 5% of the revenue and 95% of their problems, and asked me to run it one more year to see if I could save it. Well, I not only saved it, this was in '77, by 5 years later, it was the only tourism magazine left in the Cape. I then started selling other publishers in England the concept of letting us print similar guides for their newspapers. I had it up to 8 when I kept bugging MPG's president to let me offer this as a franchise of the newspapers. And they finally decided I was too much trouble. I was trying to talk them into doing something they didn't want to do. So they negotiated my withdrawal from the company. At least that's the way they called it.
You're so political.
They offered me 2 years' salary, and I was getting 6 figures and bennies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And instead, I went with zero, went with nothing in June of 1988, with the plans of launching what became Best Read Guide Cape Cod.
Right.
Because I thought I knew how to build a better mousetrap, and I launched Best Read Guide 1 month later. My wife Patricia and Steve Sullivan, who had been my salespeople with MPG and Cape Cod Guide, came along with me.
Right. And
we literally had the formidable task, or they had the formidable task, of going back to the same community they had just sold advertising for the Cape Cod Guide and sell them another contract for a new product. But for what other reason, our reputations were secure enough. We did extremely well that first year. We did about $250,000 worth of business. We doubled that the next year. By the next year, I moved the operations to Orlando, Florida, and started a second Best Read Guide, Orlando, because I realized if I wanted to franchise the concept of Best Read Guide, it wasn't enough to just do it in Cape Cod, where I was known and where people said, hell, you've lived there for 20 years, you should know how to do it there. I would have to do it somewhere as not just an alien environment, but an environment which was at the time the #1 tourist destination in America.
And a lot of competition, but you had to do the organizational development.
There were 10 publications at that time in 1990 when we started Best Read Guide Orlando. It too very rapidly, within 2 years, was very successful. And then I launched the franchise company, which attempted to sell franchises to this concept to newspapers all over the country. I'd sold 20 franchises within 5 years, and about 10 years ago, I was meeting with a company in Augusta, Georgia, Morris Communication Company, which is the second largest privately owned media company in America, own newspapers and other media all over the country, negotiating with them to buy several franchises. And I looked across the table at the owner, and I said, Billy, you shouldn't be buying franchises from me. You should be buying the franchise company, because you're in a position to carry it beyond what I can do. And he thought about it for a couple of months and bought the company.
You sold the whole company?
I sold the franchise company. I retained Best Read Guide Cape Cod because that was my baby, and because it was also a cash cow. Because at that point, and we're talking now, 1998, 1996, 97, 98, that era. And I realized at that time, apparently before many other people had realized it, that print media was a dinosaur, and that the next wave of media was going to be the internet. And so I sold the franchise company literally to have the funds, and keeping this as a cash cow, to develop whatever should be developed in online media. The first thing we put online, of course, was Best Read Guide at CapeCodTravel.com, which is still, I guess, #1 on a search for Cape Cod on Google, and it was highly successful. We have several hundred advertisers on it, and then I launched in probably 8-9 years ago, something called Cape Cod Today, CapeCodToday.com, as my idea of what a online, I don't want to say online newspaper.
Yeah, I know. It's a tough term,
My daughter-in-law, Julie, disagrees with me
with the
term. A community a community news site, a community gathering site, a place where people can go to get the kind of information associated with newspapers today.
Right.
But other things. Today, Cape Cod today, last time I looked at, oh gosh, we were going between 35,000 and 65,000 different people each day read it, depending on the weather and the day of the week.
Right.
And we have over 200 local people writing blogs for us, all kinds of news, video coverage, and it has really become the place where my head is.
Right.
Best
And your
Read
heart.
Guide continues to, this will always be my heart of hearts.
Right. Yeah.
Because
That's the cash cow, as you said, right?
It just simply
Funding
works.
this star.
My wife came up with a thing we added to the masthead recently, which is somebody kept asking her. She was out selling it. They kept asking her, where do you distribute it? And she said it's everywhere. And it is. We have a distribution company now run by my son Jay Brooks, who is BRG Distribution, which distributes over, I guess, 80 or 85 brochures. We distribute competitors' publications. We distribute much material for the Cape Cod Times and other media. In our racks, and we have over 1,200 racks from north of Plymouth and at the Rhode Island border all the way to Provincetown. So we have the best possible distribution of what I hope is the best possible medium for a person to talk to the tourist market.
Right.
It was important to me when I got into this the hospitality business in print that I become a tourist and figure out what the heck tourists need when they come over the bridge. The first thing they have to bump into it.
Right.
So even though I've always had the newspaper people have always sort of looked down their nose at the circulation department, which was always circulation wars and things. And yet I suddenly came to the realization that circulation, or in our case distribution, was really not just a key. If a person didn't come into it, bump into it within their first hour or minutes on Cape Cod, they'd be back home 5 days later and they never would have seen it.
And they missed it all.
The second thing is when they saw it in one of our racks or in a rack with 7 other products, they had to understand what they were looking at. They had to see Cape Cod and something that symbolized Cape Cod. So once a year we have a lighthouse, different on the cover. Other times we may have this one
Cranberry
has
Bog.
a September issue because that's cranberry time.
Right.
This is summer boat
Beach.
time. Up in New Hampshire where we have one of our magazines. There is pumpkin time.
Right.
The idea was everyone has a fantasy of what the vacation land they're going to is like.
Right.
In Orlando, it's Mickey Mouse on the cover. Or it's,
And there's an image of Cape
Sandwich.
Cod when they come to Cape.
It's big enough for them to recognize it from 20 feet away.
Right.
It's easy enough for them to read 20 feet away, and they know what it is.
You got their attention.
The third element is once you ran into it, and you saw that it was free and you picked it up, you then had to understand how to use it.
Right.
Because we assume that none of our readers have ever seen it before.
Right.
So on page 5 of every one of our products, we have where you are, what there is to do there, and how to do it. And
Perfect.
If you can't understand how to understand and how to use and enjoy Cape Cod with that kind of a focus,
That's a
you
guide.
probably aren't smart enough to have enough money to be able to advertise.
You probably can't come anyway.
That was what I did. And I did the same thing when we got into Cape Cod today, 12 years ago or 10 years ago. What I decided was, I realized that people were not going to use online media, online information, or look for it the same way they did with newspapers, weeklies, magazines, etc. It was a different medium. And if you remember 10 or 12 years ago, we assumed everyone using it were the young kids,
Right.
were the people 30 and younger who
Right.
were jumping into this new media.
Right.
It was quite a surprise in Cape Cod today when we started doing surveys, which we continue to this day to discover the average reader of Cape Cod today, the medium age is 55.
Right.
And that's because of our aged population here. And I suppose perhaps the people, older people in Cape Cod are one of the first groups that discovered they could use the internet to communicate with relatives and grandchildren.
All over the world.
All over the world, 1,000 miles
Right.
away. So it turned out not to be the audience we thought it was that audience too. But even then, we literally spent a couple months asking everyone we bumped into. And at the time in 1998, 99, I was focusing mostly on people under 30 years old,
Right.
down to 15 years old. And every time I ran into one of those people at a store, at a post office, riding my bike or whatever, I'd ask them, what would you have to have on local internet site to make you want to look at it every time you went online. And I collected all those reasons.
Right.
And that became the content of the first Cape Cod Today Online.
Right.
Which has,
Primary marketing research.
well, it's if you build it, they will come.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
very simple. I remember 12 years ago when Rupert Murdoch, probably the most successful media person on earth, and
Yeah.
of course now owns our local daily newspaper along with the news media company at Fox Television. When he started Fox Television as a fourth network, everyone in America said, America will not handle a fourth network. ABC, CBS, NBC.
That's it.
That's enough.
Right.
And I think a year or two ago, it moved to the first place in revenue. It did so because Murdoch, with the help of Roger Ailes and the people that helped him
Right.
launch that thing,
Good team.
literally decided that they would focus on the hearts and minds and prurient interests of 15-year-olds
Right.
and then wait 10 years. Because that's
The
why
limit to it.
Simpsons,
Right.
Married with Children,
Yeah.
In Living Color,
Right.
the crime thing that's
Yeah.
America's Most Wanted,
Yeah.
all these hot ticket things that my 10-year-old grandson watches today,
Right.
well, when he came online, he went on television with 12 years ago.
Exactly.
And of course, 15-year-olds don't have any serious money to spend. But 10 years later, at 25, they're married,
Yeah.
establishing families, buying furniture, cars, and houses.
Spending a lot of money.
And now he owns it.
Right.
And he owns that market. That's what we did with Cape Cod Today.
Right.
Cape Cod Today last month had over 700,000 unique visitors.
Yeah.
Which means different people looking at it.
Right.
And you can comment on it. There's a lot of feedback with it.
Yeah.
And it's just a hell of a lot of fun.
So
Well, the Best Read Guide now, that's still print.
Oh
It's
yeah,
phys-
so
it's
and
physical.
we do have an online version at Cape Cod Travel.
you got that too.
And
Yeah.
we just launched a brand new one called Cape Cod Kids, KIDZ, which is an online magazine for parents and children. It's called Cape Cod Kids with a Z, just because that's a good name, but we really, again, realized kids don't have serious money to spend. It's focused at least as much or more on their parents.
Right.
And there are several other portals like that we're launching in the next 3 months. A year and a half ago, we were literally, Grace Talmadge, who had started, a wonderful woman who had been in media on Cape Cod for a long time. Grace was her family had been in Philadelphia in the tourism business before they moved here. She started a product called Weddings on Cape Cod back about the same time I started Cape Cod Today or Cape Cod Travel. And it had become the preeminent wedding site on Cape Cod because weddings are a huge business, you should know. And the average wedding is something like $50,000 to $70,000 to spend on the average wedding. It's an enormous thing. When you get a wedding, it's a
It's an industry.
Right.
it's
It's
a
an
big
industry.
thing. But a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Grace called me up and said that her daughter was very ill and she wanted to spend more time with her. And she wanted to sell me her company, which at the time had 250 advertisers on it, extremely successful. And she literally wanted to sell it to me for literally the revenue it did in 1 year.
Oh.
And she said, you can even have it and pay me back as the revenue comes in. So in all intents and purposes, Grace, in fact, gave me her business.
Exactly.
She got the money, which
Yeah.
is considerable, but it was, to me, it was a signal that we were doing things right. Because Grace
Right.
said at the time, I wondered that time why she didn't offer it to anybody else. And she said, because eCape, you and your daughter-in-law, Julie Brooks, who runs eCape, are the only people I could trust. I'd feel comfortable turning my 250 advertisers over to.
Her baby.
She felt a loyalty to the people who had supported her for
Good
10
for
or
her.
12 years, which is a very responsible attitude to have, of
You
course.
bet.
And we now have probably 100 more advertisers. Weddings on Cape Cod has another version called Gay Weddings on Cape Cod. And so we have 5 portals online now.
Right.
And as I said, we're launching 3 more in the next 6 months.
Well,
That's
now the Best Read Guide though is a print
It's
item.
print, but it's also
Well,
online. It's also online at Cape Cod Travel.
But you will see it as a physical print product for the foreseeable future because
Yes, because people
it has to be, doesn't it?
Well, it has to be. Increasingly, people have the iPods and the kind of cell phones
Right.
that you can get a lot of information on. And increasingly, people will be using those to go on vacation with, too.
Right.
But still, the secret of having a product like this, it's portable. I would rather have a twice as large a canvas to paint on because I'm an artist anyway. I'd rather have a canvas that big to paint on.
Right.
But I realized
But
this
that's
is the
portable.
maximum size to fit in a pocket.
Right.
This will fit in your pocket or your purse.
Right.
If it doesn't do that, it's not going to travel with you as a
Right,
vacation.
and you want that to travel with.
And this is organized by town, by
Mm.
everything's organized assiduously.
Mm.
We actually go to the point of making sure the coupons are back to back. It's essentially a coupon system as well, because I look forward to it.
And you love it.
365 days a year.
Right.
And hell, I'm only 68 years old. Why should I slow down? I'm 70. I lost a decade. I'm only 78. Why should I slow down now?
Like I said, it's time to kick it up a notch. Walter, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much for
I enjoyed
having
it
me, Joe.
immensely.
Good luck on your
Thank
new
you for
venture.
helping us. Thank
Good
you,
luck
sir.
in your new ventures.
Ventures, yes.
Right.
I look forward to seeing you on community television.
Thank
And
you.
yourself. Thank you. My thanks to Walter on this segment for his fascinating story, and my thanks to my co-host to Cliff Robbins. And we have to end this segment, and we would like for you to send any comments that you might have about the Fox Robbins Show to foxrobbins@gmail.com. And also feel free to go to see this episode again or previous episodes online at capemedia.org, capemedia.org. And we'll see you next time. And thanks to our director, David Major, and to the Cape Cod Community Media Center for helping us get this show together. And we will see you next time on the Fox Robbins Business Show.